In creating the Inquisitorius and then instructing his apprentice Darth Vader to train the Inquisitors, Darth Sidious wasn't in conflict with Darth Bane's rule of two. Of course, as we'll see, the Inquisitors were not Sith, instead solely trained to help Sidious fulfill his objectives for the galaxy. Within both Canon and Legends, Sidious knew the importance of the rule of two. In Canon, he recognized the Sith were defeated by the Jedi since they too often were hindered by infighting, while in Legends, Sidious understood the error in the belief that the power of the dark side of the Force could be shared by hundreds of Sith Lords, with only two being necessary for the Sith Order. However, even though the rule of two was maintained, we might think that there was some risk involved in this decision to train and rely upon the Inquisitors. In having just completed his machinations that saw the destruction of the Jedi Order in the earliest weeks of the Empire, Sidious was now training the Inquisitors to be his agents allied to the dark side of the Force, who were themselves former Jedi. Even granting their continued allegiance to the dark side, there may have been the possibility that the ambitions of the Inquisitors could have eventually been directed at the Sith themselves, allying together as they attempted to overthrow Vader and the Emperor. In this video, we'll look at why this wouldn't be a fear for Sidious, where the risk involved in training the Inquisitors was far surpassed by their importance in helping maintain his empire. I will note as well that while we'll focus primarily on the Inquisitors as they've been described within the current canon, there is some very interesting lore for the Inquisitors as they existed in Legends. Therefore, I'll discuss some of these Legends aspects and make a few connections with the canon material, but of course, always being sure to acknowledge what information is Legends and what is canon. With the Sith Grand Plan successfully achieved through the destruction of the Republic and Jedi, Sidious focused on the next stage of his plans. In Legends, as he positioned himself to institute the Rule of One, where he would unlock the final secrets from the dark side to achieve immortality, and then keep power for himself instead of passing it on to an apprentice who would replace him, Sidious felt confident he could recruit a number of allies who wouldn't be Sith, but nevertheless strong in the dark side of the Force. This included the Inquisitors, as well as others such as elite units within his royal guard who were Force sensitive. In canon, Sidious also saw a need to recruit individuals who would specifically help him to locate and then eliminate the Jedi who survived Order 66, seeing these Jedi as the greatest threat to the Empire. As Sidious explained to Vader, he learned from the mistakes of the Sith Lords who came before him, utilizing those who weren't Sith to help him achieve his goals. Therefore, Sidious had planned long before Order 66 to recruit and train the Inquisitors. And it's within this plan where we see why he wouldn't need to fear the Inquisitors allying against him and Vader. In recruiting allies who were Force sensitive and training them in the dark side, including former Jedi, Sidious didn't perform this task without a tremendous amount of knowledge for how best to position them as valuable allies. In Legends, before explaining the importance of the Inquisitors within his writings in the Book of Sith, Sidious revealed he fully understood that despite the success of Order 66 in eliminating the Jedi Order, many Jedi survived, and there were still numerous individuals within the galaxy who were Force sensitive. While some would be considered a threat to his plans, he was confident that others could emerge as strong allies to the Sith and Empire, finding value in the dark side of the Force through his machinations. Sidious even developed a 3-step process that would guide him in creating Force-sensitive allies, which we should note wasn't completely flawless, seen within the redemption of his own apprentice Vader, but it was successful nonetheless. It began with recognizing what an individual desired most, or what they feared to lose. For example, with Anakin, it was the fear of losing Padme, but Sidious was confident that every individual always had something that could be manipulated by him that would begin their path to the dark side, ultimately ending when they reached a crucial moment where they then accepted this new path. This idea from Legends is perfectly seen within the current canon through Sidious's efforts with the Inquisitors, specifically the Grand Inquisitor. When Sidious was introducing Vader to the Inquisitors for the first time and explaining the role that he saw for them within the Empire, he explained what he referred to as the, quote, crack in his armor when specifically referring to the Grand Inquisitor. A former Jedi, he'd grown resentful by not being allowed access to the higher councils of the Order, and the information contained within the Temple archives. This desire was manipulated by Sidious, where he would ultimately allow the Grand Inquisitor to explore the archives and study the teachings of the Jedi as he always wanted. In fact, Sidious would recognize in the earliest weeks of the Empire that he was grateful, demonstrating how the Grand Inquisitor accepted his new allegiance to the Sith and Empire. But the importance is this. we see the crucial process by which Sidious recruited Force-sensitive individuals and former Jedi in some cases that he established in Legends also be used within canon. It wasn't merely that Sidious put together the Inquisitorius, recruited and trained the Inquisitors who became its members, and then left it at that. The process was planned long in advance, with Sidious finding the best way to have those chosen for their positions see the value in allying themselves to the dark side and Empire, and more specifically to Sidious himself. Although this wasn't perfect, it significantly limited the chances that these new allies would ultimately turn against him and Vader, with the Inquisitors instead accepting their new mission, even being grateful, as was the case with the Grand Inquisitor in canon. However, given that the process wasn't necessarily perfect, and perhaps more power might be demanded outside of that which existed through their role as Inquisitors, there could still be the possibility they did turn against Sidious and Vader, with the Sith having just trained those who now look to overthrow them. But even with this possibility, there's still a specific reason why Sidious wouldn't fear this outcome, demonstrated both in Legends and in canon. We've discussed in a previous video why the Inquisitors were so weak within canon, but I think this is an important point to make from Sidious's perspective. Despite their mission to find and eliminate the Jedi who survived Order 66, and following our first point, I think we can say the Inquisitors weren't chosen because they were the best lightsaber duelists or most powerful Force users within the Jedi Order, specifically as they exist in canon. Many times, the Inquisitors are depicted within the canon lore as being easily dispatched, either by Jedi or Darth Vader himself. For example, Vader's first introduction to the Inquisitors was his duel with the Grand Inquisitor within the former Jedi Temple. This was only weeks after Order 66, and Vader would expressly reveal during the duel that he was using the confrontation to test his suit, easily defeating the Grand Inquisitor, who was only rescued through the intervention of Sidious. Sidious would even note after the duel that Vader's victory came through little effort, later confirming to Vader that there was no chance the Grand Inquisitor could have defeated him. This was one of the leaders of the Inquisitors, and yet even he, to say the least, was no match for Vader. There are many similar examples within canon, such as Vader easily defeating many of the Inquisitors in lightsaber combat during an early training session, inflicting devastating injuries simply to teach them a lesson, and later revealing to the Grand Inquisitor he found them to be pathetic and not ready for their mission against the Jedi. Or Ahsoka easily dispatching one of the Inquisitors 1 year after Order 66, despite being unarmed. Or Vader eliminating 2 Inquisitors who were no match for the Sith Lord, easily controlled by Vader with the Force and cut down with their own lightsabers. In canon, the Inquisitors were trained merely for their role in eliminating the Jedi who remained within the galaxy, not to be duelists capable of confronting Vader and Sidious. Within Legends, Sidious was clear when it came to the training of the Inquisitors and any Force user who would assist him. They were only to be trained to learn a fraction of the abilities of the Sith, never coming close to the power of Sidious. In fact, the worry of Sidious in Legends wasn't that the Inquisitors were too powerful, but too weak. Upon the death of an individual who held the rank of Grand Inquisitor in Legends, Sidious was furious at the fact that their continued failures made the Empire appear weak. I think the same idea is seen within canon. And this wasn't the case only for their lightsaber combat abilities, but also for their power and knowledge of the dark side. Sidious made it clear to Vader. The Inquisitorius belonged to the Sith, and as such, the Inquisitors weren't Sith themselves, and so knowledge of their greater goals wasn't to be revealed. For example, when Sidious explained the importance of locating Jedi Master Jocasta Nu, given her knowledge of the secrets related not just to the light side, but also the dark side of the Force, Sidious made sure Vader understood the Inquisitors were not to know of Jocasta's greater importance, and even more, not her knowledge relating to the Force. Sidious knew this knowledge being obtained by the Inquisitors would create a threat to the Sith. In this way, whether we look at Legends or canon, there was a clear separation between the Inquisitors and Sidious and Vader in terms of their lightsaber abilities and their power with the Force. Just as we've seen Sidious more than able to duel multiple opponents at once, including some of the most powerful Jedi of their era, Sidious wouldn't need to fear the Inquisitors if they allied against him, especially once Vader is added to the confrontation. Given that such a confrontation wasn't likely, given the way in which the Inquisitors were recruited, if it did happen, I don't think the result would be too surprising, with Sidious and Vader emerging victorious. So there we have it, why Sidious didn't need to fear the Inquisitors allying to overthrow him and Vader. Thank you very much to all of the Patreon members of Star Wars Reading Club, as your support is so greatly appreciated. You can find all of our social media links and a link to our Star Wars gaming channel in the description below for updates and even more Star Wars content. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions. Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. If not for me... For the Grand Inquisitor,